17 minutes past 6 on 702 ABC Radio Sydney, and one person I've been fanging to catch up with. Joining us from the Sydney Underwater Gazette, Marco Bordieri. Ciao, come stai?
Ciao, Simon. How are you?
I'm actually very well, thank you. And I wanted you to come back for the very possibly last program I do. And when we look at the whole time of Viz and the Sydney Underwater Gazette, one good thing that COVID brought was...
Yeah, the sea turtle tracking. So it was 2020, everybody was locked down inside the house with plenty of time in their hands, including me. So I started collecting the pictures of the sea turtles that has been posted over the years on social media. And by comparing the scales on their faces, it's possible to identify the individuals and start forming an idea of how many turtles come to Sydney and how long they stay, or if they leave and come back.
And the first invitation by the ABC?
That's correct. This little citizen science project got the attention of the producers of ABC Radio, who invited me to talk about that. And, we were all a bit stressed during COVID, weren't we? So a bit of positive news, knowing that there was a number of resident turtles right here, was so refreshing without the need to travel overseas. Well, not that we could, but still.
And I have to thank David Murray, who's now our acting content director, because he came up to me and said, you know what, this guy would be good for a weekly segment.
Oh, I didn't know that. But anyway, apart from him and COVID, and also your producer, Georgia Betterman, which has been lovely over the years. So thank you, Georgia. Well, we must thank you, Simon. You had this vision of creating this segment that allows us to share our love for the ocean with such an audience. And I think it's the first time in the history of the radio that the underwater news is given a seat amid the more traditional segments like police, traffic, and news. And all the credits goes to you, Simon. And thanks also for, all the lovely conversation we've been having all these years.
It's been fun, but it's also been fun to watch the popularity grow.
Yeah, it went hand in hand with the segment. When we started our Facebook group of marine lovers, which is called VIS, Sydney Diving Visibility Report, was 2,000 members, and now it's 8 times bigger. And the radio has surely played a role in engaging listeners and possibly giving them a nudge to grab a mask and fins and go on the water. At the end of the day, our goal is to create familiarity with the marine ecosystem, especially for those who cannot experience, and taking them underwater it's a privilege we feel we're not enough prepared for, but we do our best as amateur radio speakers.
Well, look, I love being a couch snorkeler and diver, so it's been wonderful for me as well. But I've always wondered what it's like for you guys. How easy is it for you guys to be live on air? Because you're not radio presenters.
No, we are not, and personally, I would never will. And honestly, talking on the radio like now is still a bit outside my comfort zone, even after 4 years. I wake up at 5, I make a coffee, I do the cranky voice check, then I hear the Octopus Garden song, I do a little dance to bring me luck. And I also discovered that my fellow speakers of the Sydney Underwater Gazette, Nari Palmer, Steve Coates, and Pete McGee, they are doing the same. And I do the best I can. They do probably a better rendition of the underwater world compared to my second language. And also, I don't know why, but for some reason, it was always me that ended up talking about thorny subjects like mating sharks, lobsters communicating with urine, I think you remember that, or the overdeveloped member of the barnacle.
I distinctly remember that one as well. Marco, it's been fantastic to have your voice, but everybody else who is with the Sydney Underwater Gazette, because it really grew out of viz.org.au and has become a phenomenal sensation for people.
Oh, thank you. I just want to say how much of a pleasure it was to chatting with you, and really looking forward to meeting you tomorrow at the Government House.
Great to see you there. And I guess we probably should find out what the diving and snorkeling conditions are about this weekend.
Yeah, look, they're very average. There is the upwell caused by the northeast wind that has been creating very murky and green water. So low visibility, outside is raining, not the best day. Probably, the best day to conclude this, our little chat, is to stay home and think about the past. So thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to see you tomorrow.
I look forward to seeing everybody, Marco Bordieri. Ci vediamo, ragazzi.
Grazie e a presto, Simon.
Weekends